for you. I got my grandson back there. Say hi, everybody. Say hi, Bennett. I just had the joy of feeding him some of his breakfast with his mother. He's 7 months old. And he is crawling a little bit, and he's mama, mama. He's my namesake. He's Bennett Daniel. Yes, he is. So he's part of my story. So today, as you've joined us for morning motivations, I am going to give Bennett Daniel to Bennett Daniel to his mom, and she's going to put him to bed. So welcome, everybody. This is our weekly broadcast, our 9 o'clock Thursday morning weekly broadcast of Morning Motivations. I want to say good morning to Eddie Othon and Elizabeth down in Hebronville. Elizabeth, I will be in Laredo and then over in Hebronville the weekend of July 20 through July 30th. I'll be hanging out with Pastor Telvin and getting a chance to be there. So make sure you come hug my neck. Eddie, you and I are going to be together tomorrow, which is pretty awesome. We'll be traveling down to Santa Clara, Cuba, and working with the Cuban people there, Pastor Yoel and Heidi, all the Jorge's that are there, which is great. And Jorge, a brother, Jorge, a son. It's really, really cool. So today I want to talk about the concept of owning your own story. It's very powerful to who you are. Very powerful to not spend your thought time with regrets, not spend your thought time with bitterness of any kind. And so the way that you do that is that you kind of celebrate every struggle, every trial as a learning experience. And it's so important that you do that. And the important part about that is not to become self-centered by telling your story, but really by going through your story, giving thanks for the tough days in your life, making notes, either in a journal or mental notes at the very least, of what you learned through that, how you grew through those different things. And then you tell your story, decisions that you made, people that helped you. Because a lot of times we focus on people that hurt us or betrayed us or neglected us. And we don't really spend the time to begin to build building blocks in our lives by going through our lives and owning our own story. You know, my story starts in Minnesota. I was born in a hospital in St. Paul where my grandfather worked as a painter. He used to paint all through the hospital. And my mom was 19 when I was born. A lot of the story and why I was born when she was so young, she got married at 18. But a lot of the story was through her pain because she had a baby when she was 17 that she had to give up. We didn't meet Mary until much later till I was in my late 50s. And so it's always interesting to see how, your parents affect you, how everything works together. But when you think about it and you don't place negative judgments on things, then that becomes part of your beautiful story that you can tell everybody. So my mom, having given up that child, she missed that child. And it was part of the way culture was back there in the 50s. That baby was born in 1957. And they would, in the Catholic community, they would take the young girls and they would kind of cloister them away, hide them away. And then they would, they'd deliver the babies. And then within a few hours, they would take that baby and give it to a foster family. And my sister Mary, my half sister Mary, she then, went on to have a good life. And then we got to meet her when she was about 57 or 58 years old. I was a little younger, clearly. And then from there, my mom really wanted to have a baby. So she got married in 1958 and then had me almost 1 year later in 1959. And then another baby in 1960, another baby in 1962. And you see how this struggle, became creative for her. She had beautiful children, not to say I was a beautiful child, but to say she had good children. She raised her kids. She used that tough, adverse experience to create and to grow. She didn't shut down. Rather, she longed to give even more life, which is very, very beautiful. And she ended up having 5 kids with my dad. And she and my dad split at one point, and then they had another child when my mom was 44, 25 years my junior, younger than. And so that's all part of my story. Being the oldest in the house I grew up in, not knowing that I had an older sister, and being constantly told, you have to be a good example. And she used to enforce things by saying, Dan, you got to keep she called me Danny, and she'd say, you have to keep the house in order. And if I come home and something's out of order and somebody needs to be punished, it'll be you. So I learned responsibility from a young age. I learned that I was always in the position of being a good example. And it created a lot of leadership skills. It created a lot of, uh, responsibility, accountability. The fact that everything I did was being, checked up on. And to me, that became, rather than that being annoying, or rather than that being a negative, that became something that I lived with and lived by all the time. And it helped me to do my homework. It helped me to train. It helped me to train athletically. It helped me to work on whatever skill or talent that I wanted to develop, knowing that it was going to go on display. And so that's a big part of my story. And just as I'm telling my story this morning, I'm owning my story. And from there, that brought me to the place, knowing that I was used to being held accountable, used to being checked up on, having my work checked, having having to perform, having to execute on instructions, all of that stuff that put me into a position where I wasn't afraid to do that. I wasn't afraid to take a test. I wasn't afraid to sing in front of people or play in front of people or to be judged. I wasn't afraid. So that helped me then to apply. Well, actually, somebody came. It was really a miracle that the coach from Yale University came and helped me to apply for the college because my parents were young. Nobody had ever gone to college. They didn't know how to mentor me. They didn't know how to prepare me for college. So college wasn't something we discussed at home. It was something that was discussed at school by other kids, and I would hear about it. And of course, I knew about playing football in college or playing sports in college. So I was aware that there was something out there, but I didn't know the actual steps to take to get ready. I didn't know what an advanced placement class was. I really didn't know what SATs or ACTs were, which are the achievement tests. I didn't know. And so that became uh, something that, rather than being mad about the fact that I wasn't trained, I turned it around, basically saying, you know, even though I didn't know, even though I'm not mad at my parents for this, but something good's going to happen in spite of my naivete, in spite of my ignorance, in spite of my, just incredible, just, I just was unaware of things. And then I turned that around for a positive rather than obsessing over all the bad things that could happen because I didn't know things. I started to realize that not knowing things did disqualify from moving ahead. So that helped me at Yale. I got to Yale, and my grandparents were saying to me things like, what are you going there for? You don't have anybody to impress. We love you. We want you to stay home and be with us. My one grandfather said, what is Yale? Is that a Swedish jail? He didn't even know what it was. Are you going to jail, Dan? Are you going to, and he was teasing because he knew now what it was. But then when I went, I didn't have a lot of money. My parents were naive. They gave me $500, thought it was enough. And then God worked it out. So I learned all these things. I learned that out of a terrible experience that my mom had, and I didn't know about it until I was in my 50s. But looking back on it, I could see her urgency. I could see her beautiful 18-year-old desire to give life, to be a mom, to do all that. And then, my desires that I could feel that passion. I could feel that in myself. I didn't want to uh, live a life without passion. I wanted to do everything with passion. So you turn your story into a testimony. You turn your story into uh, a powerful thing. And one of the things I'm going to do at our next Deeper Life conference, and I invite all of you to come and join us, is I'm going to pay for the development of anybody who wants it. If you want to come to our Deeper Life conference, I will help you to tell your story, and it'll be put into a book, and then you can put pictures in it. I have a member of our group that has a website that creates templates, so chapter by chapter, picture by picture. You can go from your childhood to your teen years, 20s, 30s, all the way up to however old you are now, and tell your story. And the purpose of it is not to just leave a legacy or to have a memorial, but the purpose of it also is to begin to love your story and live your story and really understand that you learned through your story. A lot of times when I work with people on a regular basis and I get with them, it takes me a lot to get them to feel like they are important or they are impactful or that they have a purpose. And this exercise of owning your story, this exercise of living your life through your imagination and going back and turning every negative into a learning experience is absolutely powerful. I guarantee you that if you do it and you really work through it, I guarantee you that you will benefit from it. I guarantee you that it'll give you more confidence. It'll give you the ability to really go back and forth in a conversation. And the byproduct of it is you'll learn to value other people too. Because if you're not really valuing yourself, then it's really hard to value someone else. It's hard to give them the kind of respect, kind of honor, the kind of room in a conversation, the kind of room in a relationship for them to fully blossom and bloom because you haven't allowed yourself to own your story. You haven't allowed yourself to live your story, and you haven't allowed your experiences, your education, your feelings about things, your thoughts about things, your choices to truly motivate you forward. I hope that's helped you this morning. This is Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. I'm Dan Stratton. I'm in New York City a lot, but I'm traveling. This weekend, I'm going to Cuba, teach them to own their story. Just got back from the prisons, teaching them to own their story. I will be working with people. And if you want this help, you want your book written, all you got to do is let me know and we'll make that happen for you. God bless you. Have an awesome day. Let me close with this. Scripture teaches us very clearly that we overcome by what Jesus did for us, the blood of the Lamb, and the word of our testimony. You want to overcome, you want to start having victory in your life, you want to start moving things forward on a regular basis, own your story. Own your story. Get your journal out, start writing about experiences you have, and start turning the negatives into positives. Ask yourself, what did I learn here? And then celebrate what you learned. God bless you. Have a great day. Hey, good morning. Welcome to Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. We're very excited to be bringing these to you every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. We may be bringing them at some different times as well. Hope you've been enjoying them. I hope they are encouraging you. Hope they are helping you get your day started in the right way. Today, we're going to talk about the generous mindset. When I think about the generous mindset, I always think about a comment or a revelation I had years and years ago. It may seem simple to you, but it's a pretty powerful one. And that is, you can't give away what you don't have. So you have to learn to be a good receiver. You have to learn to be thankful. I like to use the line, I use a lot of one-liners. The better you get at being thankful, the more you'll have to be thankful for. Let's go over the two one-liners I've given you already. One is, you can't give away what you don't have. And The way to receive is by being thankful for what you already have. So the better you get at being thankful, the more you'll have to be thankful for. So this is something that I talk about a lot. I wake up with in the morning. I need to receive first. So the way I start my day is with massive thanksgiving, just massive giving God the glory and all that stuff. I was hanging out with a friend yesterday and we were talking about a home he's built for autistic children. He's got 2 homes now. And he talks about how it puts him in such a powerful place of service, talking about how it's changed his life. He has an autistic son who's now 26 years old. And he was talking about how being thankful has built all of his businesses, about how just starting his day, being grateful puts him in a position to see value, right? And so it's hard to be generous when you yourself feel deprived, undernourished, neglected, and all that stuff. So being generous is the mindset you want to get to, but you can't really start from there. You have to start by being, it's a generosity. It's a generosity that is, you can look at something and it may not seem like much, but you're generous towards it because you appreciate it or you value it highly. I like the word appreciate because appreciate has a lot of meanings. Appreciate can mean, oh, I value that, but appreciate could also mean you can add value to it or make it bigger or make it larger. So appreciation, thanksgiving, and generosity. Now, generosity begins then. I start being thankful, I'm appreciative, and then I start getting proactive. I want to do acts of kindness. I want to go out of my way to reach out to someone and encourage them, text them maybe and just say, hey, I'm praying for you. Call my dad. He's in a senior assisted living home. I want to call him and see what he's doing. I just want to be generous with my time. I want to be generous with my words. I want to be generous with my resources, with my contacts. Who can I bless today? Who can I do acts of kindness for? We've created a community where we encourage one another to do 5 acts of kindness, purpose, it's not random acts, purpose acts of kindness every month. And so then we also do our best to do those 5 purpose acts of kindness, generous acts within the community. Now, this then begins to multiply because as you're doing it within the community, you are blessing people who are blessing others. So there's a multiplication effect that happens when you bless those who bless. You encourage those who encourage. You help those who help. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people like to help the person that really just needs help, that someone has a need and you rush out to help them. There's nothing wrong with it. You can be generous towards that person, but there's really no multiplication effect. There might eventually be a multiplication effect, but the idea of being generous to the generous is the mindset. Now, the key to the first thing that I said to you this morning, that you can't give away what you don't have, flip of that truism, the flip of that law, I like to call it a law or a principle, is the only way you know you have something is if you're giving it away. So you want to, if you're learning something, you want to learn it and then you want to teach it to the best of your ability. You want to share what you've learned. That's the only real way to know that you're starting to move towards understanding, towards wisdom, towards mastery, is to give away what you have. Is to, a lot of people, when they think about giving or they think about generosity, they only think about money and they only think about giving money. And then they become very miserly. They get very zero sum game. Like, I only have so much. They have a scarcity mindset or a poverty mindset. So generosity begins, and to review a little bit here, with Thanksgiving. So I'm thankful right now that you're listening. I'm thankful right now that I'm at my grandson's house he's sleeping, right? So it doesn't take much for me to just move into an attitude of gratitude. Last night I was ministering at church and I was ministering on how faithful God is, how consistent he is, how wonderfully, it's amazing to me how people think God is so judgmental, but how amazingly forgiving he is all times. I was going through a lot of things in the book of Genesis last night with Abraham and Noah and Adam. And I was just seeing how obedience brought the blessing, but all those guys were only partially obedient and oftentimes disobedient. Yet Yahweh, God, was so wonderfully good. He kept blessing. So I'm thankful for that. I know some of you don't believe in God, but the idea is being thankful moves you towards generosity. Generosity moves you towards planting seed where you're sowing seeds of generosity. In some circles, they call it karma. What goes around comes around. The more generous you are, the more you surround yourself with other people who are generous. And the more you get into that multiplication factor, that begins to really come back your way. So that the more you give, the more you have to give. The more you think about giving, the more opportunities to give and the more resources you have so that you can begin then to give more than you did before. So these are the things that a generous mindset sets you up for. I was working with a lawyer yesterday, a good friend of mine, Janan, and we were talking about the concepts of generosity, abundance, creativity, and how they go hand in hand. How you, with a generous spirit, are able to say things like yes to things. I think about what we're doing in Cuba. And we're getting ready to do a very big campaign in November this year. And as I was preparing with the leaders down there, they said it's going to cost so much per head to feed them, to bus them in, to house them, and then to actually have the facility and to minister to them with sound and all the other aspects of the campaign. And so as I was sitting there and I was being thankful that I was getting to do this, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, what should the budget be? And then all of a sudden I got in my spirit, be generous, be generous. And he said, it's going to cost this much for 500 people, this much for 1,000. And basically what came up in my spirit from the generous mindset was make it as big as you can. And we will believe for, we will give thanks for, and expect finances to come to us through the generous mindset. So the idea is simply to say generosity begets abundance. And from that abundant mindset, creativity is enhanced so that you're not thinking about what you don't have, but you're thinking about possibilities. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Let's think about how this would work out. Let's not focus on what we're missing, or let's not focus on pain in relationships. Let's not focus on bad experiences from the past, but let us rather focus on the good, the generous good, the abundant good, the creative good that we could do. You see, now this takes a minute. You have to hang out with generosity. And that, in my mind, is God. He is good all the time. You have to hang out with abundance. Again, I come back to God. And then you have to hang out with creativity. Now, you can do that with other people, but those people have to have a mindset of understanding how beautifully those principles work together. Now, when you think about this, generosity, abundance, creativity, all those words really begin with a core value of service. You can't be generous. You can be generous to yourself, but that's not what I'm talking about. To be generous to others, to be generous for others. to be generous in anticipation of other people's needs, to create an attitude of abundance. I always think of this one liner: I don't have to be a dentist if I know one. I don't have to be rich if I know where the resources are and they're available to me. And I always jump over to the spiritual side. I don't have to be a savior because I know one. His name is Jesus. And so the idea is, as you're moving through these principles, it's what you think about. Today, I'm going to be generous. Today, I am going to bless others. Today, I'm going to think in abundance. I'm going to tap into, through Thanksgiving, a creativity. I'm going to give thanks. I'm going to give thanks for what I do have. I'm going to give thanks for my experiences. I'm going to give thanks for my trials and tribulations. I'm going to give thanks for my obstacles. I'm going to give thanks for my family. I'm going to give thanks for my church. I'm going to give thanks for my education, right? I'm going to go right on down the list. I'm going to stay in that thankful place. And from that thankful place, what builds up is my feeling that I am fully supplied, fully supplied. And then from that place of being supplied, now I can look around to see where I might have an overflow, where I may have an abundant supply of joy, an abundant supply of information or wisdom that I can bring to a situation, right? And then I share it. I share it. And then I start to realize that if I'm meditating this, I'm in a good mood. So I'm approachable now, and people aren't afraid to ask me a question or ask me for help or ask me for whatever it is, whether it's in the prisons, whether it's in Cuba, whether it's in the business network that I work with, all the way up to the top of people and managing and raising and deploying billions of dollars. These principles work. And the more generous you are, the more thankful you are, the more creative you become, and the more solutions begin to reveal themselves to you. Now, as I've said many times in this, I believe in God, and I believe that He speaks to me, but He speaks to me from my discipline of giving thanks, my discipline of meditating generosity, my discipline of receiving through giving thanks, but with the intention to then distribute, to give away. So I want to thank you today. I hope you enjoyed this today. I want to thank you for tuning in to Morning Motivations. If you have questions, if you have needs of any kind, if you want to engage on some level, reach out to us. We are building an audience now. It's going great. Lots of people are tuning in, but we want to engage and we want to hit topics that you want to talk about. So please engage. Please let us know you're out there, and we'll send you stuff. It'll be a lot of fun as we get to move and be together more and more often. Please tune in. We'll be back next Thursday at 9 a.m. and maybe even in between. I want to open a forum to help you to be even more successful in your life. God has positioned me to help people buy a house, help people buy a car, help people start ministries all over the world, help people expand ministries or businesses. And so I thought, with a lot of urging from our partners and friends, that I would open up a forum where people could ask questions, where people could dialogue with me on a weekly basis. At this point, we're going to be doing morning motivations every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. We may switch that up going forward, but this is a forum where you can ask questions. We have a one-on-one program that we work with on a regular basis where we help people to focus, help people to overcome adversity, help people to manage distractions in their lives. And one of the things I've learned in my life of helping people, my life of supporting people, is that I learn a lot from them. I learn a lot from their struggles. I learn a lot from the way they think, the way they make decisions, what causes them to go this way or that way. And of course, I've learned a lot in my own personal life. My background, I went to Yale University, then I came out of there and became a commodities trader. As a commodities trader, the one thing you learn to do quickly is make decisions. Now, you also learn to simplify the information that comes to you so that you can make those decisions. Because if you are prone to gathering a lot of information that is not really relevant to what you're doing, then you're going to be slow for one, and you're going to be wrong 9 times out of 10 for the other. And so I've been educated in that for 20 years. I made as many as 1,000 trades in a day. Some days I'd make 50 trades, but some days I could make 1,000 trades, sometimes 2,000 trades. And so when you're doing that, you're buying and selling and you're matching these trades, you're putting it together, and you have to think about all the information that's coming to you, and you have to then whittle it down to what's important, what makes sense, what's productive, and what's unnecessary and even unproductive. So during the week, before these broadcasts, before these interactions with you, I listen very carefully to the conversations that I have with people, the things that come to my mind, the things that I read, things that people email me and all that. And I listen and ask the important question: what's important? What's necessary? And then I even go to a deeper level, which is, God, what are you saying to me? What are you saying to me through this child? What are you saying to me through this request? What are you saying to me through this confrontation, even? So I'm always asking the Lord, and I'm being very self aware and taking into account how it makes me think. And that kind of brings me to my topic today, which is the cost of distraction. The cost of distraction. See, when you're thinking about the wrong things, or you're allowing yourself to have emotions about everything that is said to you, everything you read, everything you watch on TV or the internet, then that will very soon pile up on, cause stress in your life, cause doubt, cause uncertainty, a lack of clarity, and eventually it will lead to a chaotic environment that will stress you to the max. So the cost of distraction becomes bad decisions, and then the after effects are the repercussions of those bad decisions. So you have to begin, and all very productive people do this. You have to begin to pray for, think about, write down a what I would call a daily ritual or a daily regimen that helps you to start your day on something true, something true. You don't want to start your day on something that is a feeling or a piece of information that may be untrue or partially true, or worse, and antagonistically untrue. Something that was spoken to you that was an outright lie, meant to hurt you, meant to shut you down, meant to take you in the wrong direction. So these rituals that you need to begin to implement into your life can be simple. A lot of people wake up in the morning and they say something like, God, what am I supposed to do today? You know, that is not the right way to start your day, because the devil hears you speak it out your mouth. He understands English or Spanish or whatever earthly language there is that you're speaking, and he's going to do everything he can to bring information to you to get you distracted. You need to do what's right. You need to do what you know to do. You need to start your day on the right thoughts, on the true thoughts. The great scripture for this, it comes from Philippians 4-8. But verse 6 says, be anxious for no thing. Be anxious for no thing. Now, some of you may not really want to talk about scripture all the time, but it helps me to found my thoughts, focus my attention and what I think about, starting in a place that I know for a fact is true. Now, always remember that truth will come from a good place because truth is good. Informational facts, informational facts like there's heavy traffic on the road, that's a fact, no doubt about it, or different facts that are out there is not the kind of truth that I'm asking you to base your mind on. I want you to find something that you know to be true, that you believe to be true, that you can start your day. And I like to start my day with God loves me and I love him. I like to start my day with I get to choose what I do today. And that's a fact. I do. I get to choose what I do today. Now, when I work with people in prison or I work with people in Cuba that are highly restrained from what they can do, I realize that a lot of times they don't get to choose at all what they do, but they can then choose how they feel about it and how they think about it, and they can choose how they react to it. That is oftentimes a revelation for people. And we get distracted when we just get angry and we end up doing things out of obligation rather than doing things because we want to do them. And that's where even if you have to do something that somebody else is telling you have to do, you turn it around for good. You don't allow the distraction of your added feelings, the fact that you hate doing this or don't want to do this, and you just turn it around. Well, I'm going to do it well because I'm me and I'm a good person and I want to do it well. And I'm commissioned from God. And then the double distraction, the one liner for that. And if you tune into our shows on a regular basis, I'm going to give you shortcuts, one liners on a regular basis. And this one liner is don't pay for it twice. Don't pay for it twice. The other one liner that you got out of this so far is you can choose what you think about. You get to choose what you think about. Scripture teaches, cast down every vain, useless imagination that would exalt itself against the knowledge of God. So I start with the truth that God is real, that he exists, and that he loves me. And then I add on to it, add another truth on there. And I speak by faith, the creative aspect of faith. I say, I love him. Sometimes, some days, my feelings are ambivalent. Sometimes my feelings are not white hot loving God, white hot loving anything. I'm ambivalent. I have mixed feelings. I'm bored. I'm numb. I'm all sorts of things. But by choosing truth and by choosing productivity and clarity, what happens is I become aware of something good and I begin to look for that which is good. And I'm no longer distracted by that which is inefficient or that which is unproductive, because truth is always productive, good is always productive. And as you move through that, you begin to order your steps. You begin to build a ritual. And if you are a carpenter, you order your ritual, but you put joy in the planning, you put joy in the commute, you put joy in your interactions with the other people on the job. You put work ethic of excellence. As you put that nail in the 2x4, you're making sure that it's just right. So it's even. So it goes in deep into the wood. It doesn't stick out where you have to deal with it later. All the little things that start with, I get to choose my thoughts. I get to decide what I think about. I get to decide what I feel. I'm not going to let the TV dictate what I think about. I'm not going to let emails dictate what I think about or how I feel about. Now, if I choose to read my emails, if I choose to think about one of my leaders in Cuba, the lead pastor there, then yeah, then I'm choosing to think about that. Or if I'm choosing to work with my lead pastor in the prison system and support him and send him money and do the things that we do to support or to capture his vision. I'm choosing that. And then in the acknowledgement of the choosing that I'm in control of what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking about, and I'm not distracted. I'm creating what I want to create, what I believe God has created me, purposed me to create, to support, to love. And so when it begins with these kinds of thoughts, these are the things that order your day aright and put you in control. All of media, all of TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, even television is designed to fill you with information so that you can't possibly make a good decision. The Bible is exactly the opposite of that. The Bible treats you like a precious creation, individual who can make good decisions. I tell people all the time, I trust you. You make good decisions. But then I also say, stop watching that TV because I can hear the influence, the negative, toxic, divisive, distracting influence that you're under. You are amazing. You are a good decision maker. You just need to get back to your personal relationship with your creator so that you can create again. So this broadcast, this interaction between you and I want it to be truly question and answer. I could talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'll always come back to principles, tell stories that relate to that. But if you'll send me a question, I'll think about that. I believe it comes from God, that God has prompted you to write that question into me, and I'll pay attention to it. I'll study it out. I'll do a little research. I'll think about it. I'm sure if you're having that question, other people will have that same question or a topic that you want to discuss. But let us not be completely led by what's in the media. The fact that McCarthy's talking to the president of Taiwan, or the fact that President Trump was indicted, the fact that there's huge problems with what's going on in our school system, or crime, or the border. Let's not be distracted by that all the time. Let's think about things that are more important. Let's think about our own decisions. Let's ask questions about being truly personal, being truly productive, being truly generous and kind.